Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Bockel. I'm the co-executive director of NJ 11th for Change. Mara Novak, our other co-executive director, and field director Stacy Abenstein and I welcome you to tonight's important panel discussion, Defending Democracy, Everything You Wanted to Know About Election Rules, but Were Afraid to Ask. NJ 11th for Change believes that government should be transparent, responsive, and accountable. And we think it's crucial that constituents like all of us vote every time and really understand how our government works. If you agree, we hope you'll visit our website, www.nj11.org, to join our grassroots team, to learn more, or even make a donation to support the civic education work we're doing here tonight. Please check the chat. I'll put the links up soon. And by the way, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat too, and we'll try to address them as we go or at the end if we have time. All across New Jersey, we have important elections in 2021, including the race for governor, and for your legislative district's state representatives down in Trenton, the state Senate and the state General Assembly, not to mention county and municipal elections that are really going to affect daily life in your town. Voting processes have had a lot of upheaval over the course of the pandemic. And while things are a little bit back to normal, we're glad that you're here tonight to learn about how things are going to work this time. There are definitely some new and unfamiliar options this go round. Now, most voting procedures are basically the same across all the state, but there are variations from county to county. And that's why we've brought together election experts from the different counties that have towns in Congressional District 11, Essex County, Morris County, and Passaic County. Our Sussex expert, Carolyn McGee of the Sussex Board of Elections, can't be here tonight, but she has provided NJ 11th for Change with information that we'll share with you. And I'll end up putting some links from Sussex into the chat that you can pick up as needed, and I'll share as we go along. So let's jump into it and welcome our panelists. Thank you all for being here. Can each of you introduce yourself and tell us what county you're from and what your county role is? Shall we start with Chris?
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate it. Appreciate the invitation. And thank you, Mara and Stacy. My name is Chris Durkin. I'm the Essex County Clerk, and I'm honored to be here to share information.
Thanks. Matt.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Clarkin. I am one of the Democratic commissioners on the Morris County Board of Elections. I want to thank Mara, Leslie, and Stacy for putting this together, and I'm really looking forward to answering everyone's questions.
Thanks, Matt. And John.
Hi, everybody. I think I'm probably pretty familiar, but I'm John Bartlett. I'm a Passaic County Commissioner, so I'm one of those county commissioners that's on the ballot in a couple of weeks. So please go vote in Passaic County. But also in real life, I wear a hat as an election lawyer, and happy to answer your questions today.
Fantastic, thank you. So the first thing that we, as a grassroots organization, have been concerned with all this season is voter registration. How can voters check whether they're registered, and if they're not registered, is it too late for this election at this point?
I'll jump in if I could. You can check if you're registered to vote at Am I Registered NJ if you Google it, or the website is voter.svrs.nj.gov. And Am I Registered? You put in your name, your date of birth, and it'll tell you if you're a registered voter. The deadline is passed for new registered voters. And that was last Tuesday, 21 days before Election Day. But as we're moving towards Election Day, you can still update your registration. You can change your address. You can change your party. You could change your name right up to Election Day, especially now being with the electronic poll books and the SVRS system hooked together for real-time updates. That's very beneficial to the voter to have the most updated profile possible.
Great, thank you. And the link is amiregistered.org?
No, actually, well, Am I Registered NJ was the Google search, and the actual site is voter.svrs, that's statewide voter registration system, .nj.gov.
Great.
That's the link specifically to check if you're registered. I just posted to the chat a link to vote.nj.gov, which is a super helpful one-stop shop that this administration has put up there, where you can check your you can register to vote, which is now an online process. You can check your registration, you can find your polling place, You can find your early voting places and so on and so forth, all at vote.nj.gov.
Terrific, thank you. So the big excitement this election is that there are 3 ways to vote: voting by mail, voting early in person, and voting in person on election day. How are you guys feeling about all these new options for voters?
Yeah.
I think the feeling is excellent all around. The more ways we can have people be able to vote at their convenience in a safe and secure way, it is just fantastic for the electorate, and it's going to be able to get a lot more people out to vote, in my opinion.
I agree with you. This all started way back when farmers had to travel to vote, and Monday was their travel day, and Tuesday was an election day, and it's pretty outdated to have one day to vote. And we all know that vote by mail used to be limited. You actually, it was absentee voting, and it was only for certain reasons. You had to be in the military or disabled to vote, and we know. Even just 20 years ago, people voting by mail or absentee voting was less than 6% of the public. So this access to the ballot box, whether it be vote by mail with no excuses or early voting now, or end election day, is really beneficial to the voter.
Yeah. What I think this year brings us sort of a challenge is we're coming to the end of a couple of years where voting feels like it's been changing a lot. You'll remember that back in 2018, the legislature passed and the governor signed a bill where anybody who had voted by mail in 2016 got a vote by mail ballot automatically. That was trying to increase voter turnout by taking that presidential turnout level and getting ballots into people's hands. They did the same thing in 2019. And then of course 2020 came, and all of a sudden everyone's voting by mail. And primary election day was extended to July, and that was all a part of accommodating COVID. Now we have a couple of new things going on all at once. First of all, the introduction of early voting for the first time ever, starting October 23rd, early in-person voting. We still have vote by mail and election day voting. What I've seen a couple of times as I'm canvassing and talking to voters is people don't understand why they haven't gotten a ballot, because they're sort of accustomed to it. But after once the decision was made that this year's elections would be in person, that automatic vote by mail ballot coming to you in the mail is no longer happening. People ask me, why haven't I gotten my ballot yet? Well, if you weren't already on the list as a permanent absentee voter, having checked that box where you say, send me every ballot until I tell you to stop, you're not going to get a ballot in the mail automatically this year. So add to that, on top of that, new machines in a lot of places, and this is going to be a real learning year for election staffs, for poll workers, and for voters.
Yeah. So everyone who has requested a vote by mail ballot, or who has checked off that they want them in perpetuity, should everyone have gotten their ballot by now? And if they haven't gotten it yet, what do they do?
Yeah, anybody, unless they requested it very recently and then just sent that request form in the last couple of days, those ballots should already be in people's hands. The initial bunch of ballots in Passaic County went out the 3rd week of September. So before the end of September, anybody on that permanent list in Passaic County had their ballot in their mailbox already.
And we request in Essex County, we request a email requesting a second ballot if their first ballot was not received, or if the first ballot was spoiled, thrown out. And then we can, with that record of a request through an email, we can print that out and attach it to the record that the request came to us for a second ballot.
Okay, so all they have to do is email. They don't have to fill out a second form and mail it in.
Yes, and in Essex, the email address is info@essexclerk.com. So pretty simple. info@essexclerk.com.
And that only works for replacement ballots, not for an initial request.
Not for, that's a great point. We back, as John said, we're back to regular elections where you need to request your first ballot through an application, vote by mail application.
Got it. Is that the same in Passaic and Morris counties? Can you make a request for a replacement ballot by email, or is there a different procedure there? Matt?
Matt, you're muted. No, hold on.
I can say for Passaic, I'm not aware of there being an email option, but our county clerk's office is very responsive on the telephone.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they can do it by phone or can provide guidance by phone.
Correct.
Great.
And it's the same thing in Morris, either by email or by phone. They can request a new one. And in my experience, from what I've heard from people, those requests have been honored.
Great. Great. How about you, John, in Passaic? How does it work?
I'd call the county clerk's office. I'm not sure if they have an email address.
Okay.
Leslie?
Yes.
Did you see, there's a question from Barb Demarest about whether she can vote in person? I think that would be a good question for everyone here.
Yes, if someone has received a mail-in ballot, can they still vote in person? And do they need to bring it in their unopened mail-in ballot to the polling place or anything like that to prove that they haven't mailed in a vote before they vote?
So they
if you
can still
go,
vote.
sorry, John.
Go ahead, Matt.
Sure. So if you're on the vote by mail list and whether you've received your ballot or not, frankly, you can still go in to vote on election day. You'll end up voting a provisional ballot. You don't need to bring anything with you. That'll already be marked in the poll book that you are a mail-in voter. So at that point, they will give a provisional ballot. The checking to see whether or not someone has, in fact, also voted by mail is done on the back end at the Board of Elections.
Very good. Very good. And that's a statewide approach. Yeah, Chris. Oh,
Yeah, we don't seem to have permission to unmute ourselves, just so you guys know.
Mara, I have permission to ask people to unmute, but not to directly unmute them. Can you check yours?
I'm back.
Oh, good.
Thank you. And
Thanks.
Matt answered it perfectly.
Oh, there we go. All right. And provisional ballots, I think many of us have seen them over the course of the past couple of years. It's a paper ballot that you fill out at the polling place, and the poll workers there will be, if you tell them that you need a provisional ballot or that you are a vote by mail person, they will know to hand that to you, to fill it out. You fill out the record of your identity so that they can confirm that you, the voter, hasn't voted in another manner. And then that record of your identity gets removed before they open your ballot for the counting process. So your vote remains anonymous.
Right. Leslie, I want to make one other point about paper ballots and the polling place. In 2020, during the pandemic, you could bring your vote by mail ballot to the polling place on election day and hand it in. You cannot do that this year. That was just an accommodation during COVID. If you got a vote by mail ballot, either return it by mail, return it in one of your ballot drop boxes, or return it using a bearer, which is somebody else who carries it for you.
Very good. So I wanted to check for people who are deciding now that they want to vote by mail, is it too late for them to make the request, their initial request? And how long do they have?
Okay, so the last day to apply for a vote by mail ballot through the mail is October 26th, which is 7 days prior to election day. But the catch to that is we have to, at the county clerk's office, have to have that application in the office. It's not about if it's postmarked, the application October 26th. It needs to be in the county clerk's office October 26th for us to mail a ballot to a voter. When it gets within 7 days, a voter can come in person and request a ballot or send a messenger on their behalf to pick up their ballot.
Very good. And that is also a statewide policy.
Correct, yes.
And it would be to the county clerk's office in each county if they need to go in person?
Yes. And I know I saw on your sheet about messenger and bearers, and I wanted to get to, because we're on the messenger part of vote by mail. If you wanted to send someone to retrieve your ballot from the county clerk's office, a messenger by law is able to do 3 messenger ballots, and that's including their own. Bearer, same thing. So if you're going to bring a ballot back, whether that be to the secure ballot drop box, whether that be to the Board of Elections, the limit is 3 unless, here's the new law, unless it is a family member that resides in the same household, then it's 5. So you can be a messenger for 5, and a bearer for 5 as long as you reside in the same household as your messenger ballots or bearer ballots.
Yeah, and that's actually an adaptation that came out of Passaic County last year. The statewide law was a maximum of 3 ballots per bearer. We had a gentleman who was head of household, brought in his ballot and his wife and his 3 children, and he was told, choose which 3 you want to have cast, and we're going to have to discard the other 2. So fortunately that was fixed. Bearer and messenger are a little bit detailed, and not many people may be affected by it. I'm happy to answer in greater detail, but I also have some videos on my YouTube channel that explain kind of what a bearer is and why there's that little form on the envelope that you have to fill out if you are a bearer. So folks, if we don't want to take that time now and folks have questions, I'd refer them to my YouTube channel and my videos.
Great. John, if you can put a link to that in the chat later, that would be super helpful so people can go there directly. So the basics of completing a mail-in ballot, I think most of our voters have had experience with that through voting in 2020. Is there anything radically different from last time? The filling out the flaps, filling out the interior, getting everything sealed properly. Is there anything new and different there that people should know about?
One important addition is the allowance of an email address for a voter, just in case the ballot is denied based on signature comparison or lack of signature, so that we just don't have the mailing address to mail a cure letter. You can also email the cure form as an added, notice to the voter.
That's great. Anything, John or Matt, that you're aware of that's an update on how filling out the ballot works for voters?
No, in Morris County, it is the exact same ballot and envelope design as it was last year, so it should be completely familiar to anyone who cast a ballot in 2020.
Great.
Ballot design has changed in Passaic County, but actually for the better, it looks the same as the machine now, whereas it used to look very different.
Now, did Passaic and Morris also have the option to fill out an email address for ballot curing?
I don't know. I'll try and find out.
It's my understanding.
I would also have to check on that.
My understanding is that's a state directive.
Great.
Excellent. Then it'll be there.
I did want to ask, what do people need to do if they need help from someone else to fill out their ballot? Not just returning it, but actually filling out.
And that's called an assister, and that's done. That can be done on the vote by mail application. It can be on the vote by mail ballot flap, and really it's just an assister. It doesn't need to be a registered voter, a family member. It's an assister that needs to document who they are, helping the voter.
Right, and just like Chris said, that's the assister identifies themselves on the flap of the ballot envelope. And if they're assisting with a vote by mail request form, there's a field there again where the assister identifies themselves. And I can tell you, it can't be somebody who's a candidate on the ballot, but except for that, I think Chris is correct. It can be anybody.
Right. So once everyone's got their ballots filled out, they've got a variety of options for returning their vote by mail ballot. There are drop boxes. So for drop boxes, what's the easiest way in each of your counties for people to find out what the locations are? I know people can return to any drop box within their county. That's correct.
Yeah.
And where should they go to find a list of the most convenient locations for them?
Well, the list is within the vote by mail ballot materials.
Great.
So if you are opening up your ballot, you will see a card that contains the 29 secure ballot Dropbox locations in Essex County. It also appears on our website at essexclerk.com, all of the locations. We did add 4 more based on the law saying that any colleges, universities that have 5,000 or more students in Essex, that's Seton Hall University, Rutgers, Newark, NJIT, and Montclair State.
Great. Matt, for Morris County, what's the best way for people to identify? Will there also be the list within the ballot?
There is, and I've also included a link in the chat to our 30 locations in Morris.
Terrific, thank you. And John, for Passaic? what's
For
your thing?
Passaic, I'm going to add a link to the chat with the list of our drop boxes. In most towns, there's one at the municipal building. Also, for folks who are interested statewide, I tweeted earlier this afternoon, Win from AT&J created a Google Map function. I don't know how it works, but where you can search for ballot boxes statewide.
Terrific. Caveat that you don't want to return your ballot to a box in a different county, because then that county's Board of Elections has to figure out whether they can get it to your home county where it'll be counted.
Correct. You got to return it within your own county, but not within your own town.
Also, I'm sorry, also you can go to vote.nj.gov, like you were saying earlier, John, that you can get that information there.
One other thing I want to say on ballot drop boxes is it's been our experience in Morris this year that the usage has been relatively light. So we want to encourage as many people as possible to use the drop boxes. First of all, because you're not going to have the sort of mail slowdowns and other things that you read about with USPS. It's picked up directly by the Board of Elections. And also because we don't want there to be any push to reduce the number of ballot boxes in each county due to non-usage, right? We want to make sure that there's as many as possible. And right now we have 30 in Morris, and we'd like it to remain at 30, if not more, in future years.
Use it or lose it with the ballot.
Exactly.
Yeah. And ballot drop boxes are open through the closing of polls on election day. Is that correct? And at 8 p.m. they're locked up. And if you're not in, you're not in.
Correct.
Okay, very good. So it's also still an option for people to return their ballot to the Board of Elections offices in their county?
Yep, and that's the same deal. Up until 8 p.m. on election day, you can stop by the Board of Elections and drop it off. And similar to voting in person, if there's a line at 8 p.m., anyone in that line is going to be able to get to the front of it. If there happens to be multiple people there at exactly 8.
Great. So a person or their bearer can bring it in person. And then, of course, mailing U.S. Postal Service. And that pretty much covers our options for returning a mail-in ballot. So once you've returned your ballot, how do people make sure that their ballot was received? Like where can they go to check, and what are sort of the stages of acceptance that people should be looking for? Chris, do you want to grab that one?
Sure. Track My Ballot it's on the New Jersey Division of Elections website. It allows you, if you put in your information, your voter information, name, last 4 digits of your social, your driver's license number, or your voter ID, one of those, you can sign up to track your ballot. And then you'll see if your ballot was received. And then you'll see if your ballot was accepted. I know in Essex, it took a while to see it being accepted. You know, you saw it received. But you need, I mean, I know Matt can talk about this. You need to turn that function on to have it switch to accepted after it's been counted. But we had it on received. We had it on that mode received for quite a while. I think it might have been 2 weeks after election day, right before in Essex, everyone saw accepted, for their ballot.
So patience when you turn in your ballot.
Yeah. And I know the counting, as Matt can tell you, the counting of ballots starts 10 days before election day. And that was instituted, the presidential, to allow for, timely results and not a rush to count ballots.
Very good. So if there's a problem with the ballot, with your ballot, you will be notified either by mail, or if you provided an email address, you'll be notified by email. What happens then?
So at that point, you're going to get either a letter or an email informing you of the issue. Most commonly, it's going to be a signature issue, whether it be a signature that does not match the signature they have on file, or actually more commonly is the voter just forgot to sign the ballot and the signature line was just left blank. And at that point, you will be able to return that letter, email, etc., with the appropriate signature so that they can count it. There was a little bit of a misconception last year that you would get a new ballot at that point. That's not the case. All you're returning is the letter or the email, and the ballot is essentially held in escrow until that occurs.
Very good.
That's a very good explanation. The other kind of ballot error that often we would see in vote by mail ballots is a so-called naked ballot. Somebody's put their ballot into the outer envelope without putting it in the inner envelope before. So that creates a signature problem because you haven't signed an affidavit, and it creates a voter privacy problem. Chris, how are you guys dealing with that this year with naked ballots?
My understanding, they're being counted, naked ballots. So that's my understanding of the policy of our Board of Elections.
I think there's a cure letter process because in theory, at least, they still have to match your signature to your ballot. But last year, a lot of places, naked ballots were just discarded, and that's no longer the case.
Yes, and another big issue, and we talk about how vote by mail has many steps to it, and there's a lot of parts to the envelope. 3 envelopes, a ballot, instructions, ballot boxes, and sometimes the voter doesn't include their ballot, and you're not able to remedy that. Unless before time, you can go to your Board of Elections and plead for your vote to count that your ballot was not put into your return envelope. You'd be surprised at things that happen there, and that'd be a shame to not have your ballot in there, but you did everything, and you even voted on your ballot, you just put it in another pile. And so it's important to remedy that once you find out you did that, and not be embarrassed.
All too easy to imagine doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and an issue that has occurred periodically is one or the other envelope being missing from your the vote by mail package that you receive. If that happens, just pick up the phone and call your county clerk. If it's the interior envelope, which has your voter information printed on it, they'll have to generate a new one for you. If it's that exterior envelope, which is for the Postal Service, they just have to get one of those to you.
great, thank you. I'd love to move on if we can to early voting. And John, I know we don't have you for too much longer, so I'd
like 5 more minutes.
a chance to talk a little bit about early voting, specifically in Morris, early voting running from October 23rd to October 30th. How's Morris handling it, and what should your voters expect?
You're talking about Passaic?
Sorry, Passaic.
So we're early voting, as we mentioned earlier, is a new thing this year. It runs from the 23rd to the 31st of October. And then that Monday, the 1st of November, is a day off from all voting. And then election day, of course, is Tuesday the 2nd. So early voting sites have been set up across each county. In our case, we've got 11 early voting sites across our 16 municipalities. And you can go there during the designated hours, which are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., depending which day of the week you're talking about. And you can go there and you cast your ballot just like you will be doing on election day. Now in Passaic County, that means new machines. And we have both a new voting machine and, importantly, new electronic poll books that are part of how we are able to provide voting in 16 municipalities with only 11 machines. One of the first thing you'll see when you walk in to vote is an electronic poll book. So those big binders full of paper with pictures of your signature in it are gone now. Statewide, you're going to have some version of this electronic poll book where you'll identify yourself to the election board member. They will key in your information, find your voter ID, and then flip this iPad type device over towards you, and you'll sign it on the screen with a stylus. And in Passaic County, we're using disposable styli so that 2 voters aren't handling the same stylus. You'll sign the screen, whereas you used to sign a piece of paper, and that's when the signature match will occur. And then you'll get your voting credential the same as before, and you go over and use your brand new ES&S XL touchscreen voting machine. In Passaic County, and I think some of the others on the call, you're used to those big Sequoia full-face ballots with the actual buttons that you press and a little green light that lights up. This is the new voting machine, new technology for both early voting and on election day, and it's a touchscreen, a lot like using an ATM. You can choose your language, you can choose your font size, you touch the boxes for all the candidates you want to vote for. Depending how many local races you have, or referenda, or Board of Ed, and so forth, it might go across a couple of screens, especially if you've selected a large font size. But when you're done, you get to the very end and you'll be prompted on the screen to push a vote button, and you do that. And the other piece of it is the voter verified paper ballot system, which is right here. So once you cast your vote, it'll be printed on this paper form. You can look at it through the plexiglass. And if that conforms with how you want to vote, you press that vote button again, and the paper gets sucked up into the machine for storage and for later auditing, and you're done. And if you don't like what you see on the paper for any reason, the device lets you go back and vote again. And again, you'll have that paper opportunity to verify how you voted. And those paper ballots that's not what's actually counted until there's an audit or a recount. The data actually live in a kind of thumb drive that is up at the top of the machine.
Got it. Well, we have a question from Joanne about this. She's concerned. She says she's never seen a stylus on screen signature that really looked anything like a real signature. So what's the remedy if the screen signature isn't deemed to match? Is that something like the vote by mail cure process, or what happens?
No, that doesn't solve the problem of voting right there when you're there on election day or early voting. So what I would expect is that if your signature doesn't match, they'll ask you for ID. Although ID isn't generally required for voting in New Jersey unless you're voting for the first time, it's worthwhile to bring your wallet, purse, wherever you carry your ID, have that with you in case you need to demonstrate who you are and where you live.
And ID would be a driver's license, a passport. Does it have to be a state issued ID to?
And anything with any combination of documents that has your name, your address, and your likeness. So for most of us, that's going to be a driver's license or a MVC non-driver ID or a passport. It could also be the combination of a student ID and a pay stub or water bill, or anything that gives that combination of your name, your likeness, and your address.
Thank you. Thank you. So my question, when I know that there isn't an early voting location for every single polling place out there. How will, when you get to say a centralized early voting location, how will they know what ballot to get you with the right municipal candidates and the right county and right?
That's where the electronic poll book comes in. You'll go in and say who you are and where you live. And for example, if you live in Little Falls, we don't have a polling place in Little Falls, but you go to Woodland Park or you go to Wayne to cast your early vote, you'll nevertheless get the Little Falls ballot on your screen. You'll be able to vote for your local council members because of the electronic poll book identifies where you're from, and your particular ballot loads in the machine, no matter where the machine is located within the county.
Okay, thank you. Now if you're signed up for a vote by mail, what happens if you decide you need to go vote in person early?
You would vote on a provisional paper ballot. So you're flagged. Once you are in the system as requesting a vote by mail ballot, you are not able to vote on the machine, whether that be early voting or election day voting. You will be handed a provisional ballot. That provisional ballot will go back to the Board of Elections. The first check will be to verify, did the person vote by mail? If they did not, then the provisional ballot is verified and counted.
Very good. At the early voting sites, what provisions are made for voters who have disabilities? Are they all ADA compliant? What will go on?
So all the locations are ADA compliant, and in addition to that, you have the same gear and materials that you would have, such as auditory systems that you would have at the regular polling place on election day to make those accommodations. So it's very similar to the accommodations made in election day polling places.
Yep,
Great.
that's correct. There's a particular attachment for the ES&S machine that has the audio and the tactile functions. I've tried it out. It's pretty high tech, and it lets you vote privately with all different sorts of disabilities.
High tech, but also very user friendly as well.
Great. Actually, we have a comment from someone watching, from Heidi right now, and she said that she trained this week on the iPad voter rolls, and that they were instructed to be relatively easy on the signature matches. And she said she believes that they're going to say that how you sign the iPad this year will serve as your signature for next year. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, the interpretations are going to be very liberal, and that's the instructions, because it's true. It is different using a stylus than it is using a pen on paper.
Mm-hmm. Great. John, I know your time is tight. Is there anything else you want to add specific to Passaic about voting in person or about recent changes to election day voting before you have to skedaddle?
I've got a rabbit. I just added to the chat a link to a video that our superintendent of elections did demonstrating the new technology. So that'll be useful for Passaic County voters. And I would just say, look, I think I'm speaking for Matt and Chris as well. We're here as resources. You know where to find us, whether it's on social media or by phone at our offices or by email. If you've got questions, reach out. Everybody, and that includes the county clerks and the superintendents of election that aren't on this call. Everybody wants to help folks vote and exercise their rights. And I can speak for our Passaic County staff. Everybody's going to be great and very helpful with whatever questions you may have. So don't hesitate to reach out, and there's no stupid questions. And thanks, everybody. I do have to run.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
John.
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 Thanks, John. Really appreciate your help.
Also, if I could add about speeding up the process with early voting or even election day voting, on our sample ballot, which I know it hit most mailboxes this past Saturday, 2 days ago. And if you haven't gotten it, you should get it in the next 2 days. But it has a barcode on the front. And that barcode can be scanned into the electronic poll book, which will immediately bring your information up, and then all you have to do is sign. You wouldn't even have to tell the board worker your information. So that is a quicker way, because and then as John was saying about your specific ballot, when your information is brought up, it automatically identifies your specific ballot. In Essex, we have 34 different ballot styles. And the ballot on demand printer hooked up to the electronic poll book will print your specific ballot for you to vote on.
Terrific, terrific. Before we move on to election day voting, I want to backtrack real quick to vote by mail ballots, because we have a question from Jack Gavin. He asks if your vote by mail envelope glue is bad, what should you do? Is taping it shut the right way to do? I know we've had that problem in past years, but what's the easiest solution that won't get your ballot thrown out for that? Matt, do you want to field that one?
Yeah, tape works, glue works. Anything that gets a seal is going to be acceptable. That was in Morris County, where we had that issue 2 years ago, where certain ballots, I believe it was in Morris Township, did not have the proper application of glue from the printer. And it did become, quite the controversy in the end. Those did end up being looked at because the election was so close and there was a challenge to it. But if you end up with a ballot, I hope you don't, because again, this issue happened just 2 years ago and it should be addressed, that has a glue issue. Any way you can get that thing stuck shut is going to be acceptable. The things that are really looked for, and I know where Jack is coming from with you don't want to do something that's going to get the ballot thrown out. It's really just evidence of tampering that is going to bring something into question. So something like tape or glue, that's not going to bring up those questions. It's going to be, relatively understood that there must have been some problem with the envelope itself.
Great. And I know that voters, if they're having problems, can call Board of Elections, they can call their county clerks. And I know, given our intense election seasons these past years, that that you guys have all been inundated with phone calls. What do you anticipate for this year? Is it going to be the same kind of volume coming of calls and questions coming into your offices? And if so, how will you handle and make sure that people can get through when they have urgent voting related questions?
I would anticipate on the Board of Elections side that it's going to be less, just because unfortunately people just do not pay the same level of attention to a non-presidential election as they do with the presidential that we saw last year. But we are staffed up. We are anticipating more phone calls, particularly as more people are voting by mail than any year ever before, with the exception of last year. The recommendation I would make, though, is if you are having a problem, calling about it as soon as possible is going to be the best way to make sure you're able to not only get through to someone, but also be able to talk to someone in a bit of depth about it. Election day itself tends to be when things are really, ringing off the hook and when there might be a problem getting through.
Makes sense.
I agree with Matt. I don't see as much, call volume, email volume, but we are staffed properly to accept, an upsurge in these last 2 weeks. We are very responsive with emails. As soon as they come in, they're responded to. Phones. I'll tell you, after the information brochure came through, there was a deluge of phone calls. And as Matt said, thinking that, where's my ballot? This is like last year. Why didn't I get my ballot? And we told them it's a regular election. That's 90% of the phone calls, 90% of the emails are questioning where is my ballot when they need to apply in the first place. So this is very important forum to get that out there.
Yep, very good. So can you guys talk a little bit about what the voting machines will be like at the early voting sites in your counties? Will they be the same as regular election day voting machines? Chris, do you want to talk about
Essex?
Start?
Yes, Leslie. In Essex, it's the same. So early voting method is the same as election day voting method. It is a paper ballot, human marked paper ballot. We're the only county in New Jersey to have this, where every ballot is the human marked voter intent, where you're given a ballot at the early voting center. You go to the privacy booth, you vote on your ballot, and you put it into the optical scan reader, the same as election day. And I know you're going to bring up about privacy, whether that be at the early voting center or on election day. Training was made mandatory, and training was lacking. I mean, I'm sure all over the state in the primary, and even much more lacking last year based on COVID. But training has been made mandatory, and also on top of that, there's a $30 benefit. They're giving poll worker training $30 extra to come to the training. So that's really helpful to get board workers to the training and to know that the privacy of the vote is paramount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we definitely heard a little bit about that because it was a little erratic whether that privacy sleeve was offered. But when it's offered, it works, and everyone can feel confident that their vote is confidential. So that's great. That's great. Matt, how about in Morris? Are they different machines for early voting?
Yes. So this is one of the areas that is a little different between the counties. In Morris County, we are using the ES&S machines for early voting that John had demonstrated before. Same technology, same machines. With the electronic poll book, electronic voting machine with the paper ballot backup. On election day itself, it is going to be the Sequoia machines that voters in Morris County have been used to using over the last 20 years or so. In 2022, we're going to have a full rollout of the ES&S machines on election day itself as well. But here in 2021, it's bifurcated between early vote and election day.
Great. Is there anything else that people should know specifically about early voting before we talk about regular election day voting in depth?
Nothing particularly comes to mind that hasn't been addressed. Other than that, we want to encourage as many people to early vote as possible. First of all, so that, people can start getting used to, in the case of Morris County, the new voting machines that are going to be in effect for early voting, but that will be fully rolled out next year. And also just because it's a way to ensure that, you get your vote in case something comes up on election day itself. I know there's a lot of discussion about moving election day to a weekend, but with early voting, we have 4 weekend days where people can go at their leisure to vote. Or if someone's work schedule involves them working on the weekend and Thursday is the best day for them, there's a Thursday available, right? So it's really the best way to ensure that you don't have anything come up that's going to impede your ability to vote on election day itself.
Fantastic. Stacy?
I'm having a back and forth with one of the people attending this webinar that they're having a lot of trouble in their town with kids, college kids who either didn't, they didn't change their addresses or they never requested it. And now they're concerned with the mail being, getting the request form in on time. And of course, they woke up 2 weeks before the election. So is there a way that they can request it other than, mailing it from God knows where they go to college to, Newark or Morristown?
If this is in terms,
I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is this an issue with the application or the ballot in terms of the form?
Well, they didn't get a ballot and they're waking up to realize that they needed to either request it or they needed to change their address because they are not at the same dorm or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. So Chris, since the applications go to you, if you could take this one.
It's true. I wish the technology met the urgency because we need the hard copy signature and that's state statute for the Board of Elections. So yeah, it needs to be, I guess there needs to be more money spent, right, with overnight mail or to get that application to us. So we have to have it in hand Tuesday, October 26th, a week from tomorrow, for us to legally mail a ballot. When it gets within 6 days of the election, we're not legally allowed to mail a ballot. Second ballots we do. Second ballots we keep pushing out, but the initial request needs to be in our office by October 26th.
If a student's ballot comes to their parent's home address, is there any reason the parent can't send it express to their student away at school?
Absolutely.
Do?
Yes.
And that's exactly what they should do.
Yes.
Very good.
And the other thing I just wanted to note real quick is, this is one of the consequences of us having voter registration available online in the state of New Jersey, but vote by mail application not available online in the state of New Jersey. And, it's something that I think we're all hopeful is going to be addressed moving forward, because that's policy set at the state level, not by county clerk's offices or boards of election.
It would be nice to have that catch up.
Yeah,
One last
sure.
question about early voting. Are there any COVID related rules that people should be aware of before they walk through that door? Are masks
In terms of rules, there is a recommendation, but not a mandate to wear a mask. The regulations are really more on the end of the poll workers than they are on the end of the voter, in terms of sanitization and wearing a mask and things of that nature. There's nothing that a voter would do coming into a polling place that would prevent them from voting, whether on election day or in early voting.
Very good. So you can't be turned away from voting for anything.
Correct.
If you choose not to wear a mask, not that we're advising that at all, but you can't be kicked away from voting for that reason.
That's correct.
And there's a comment related to what we were just talking about with students. A comment came in from Jack saying that if a student who's living elsewhere is mailing back a ballot, his suggestion was for that student to take it to the post office and watch it get postmarked. rather than just drop it in a box. It might be a real quick way to make sure that they're getting what they need.
It's a great point. And, there's a law that allows for 6 days after election day, as long as the ballot is postmarked election day or prior, for it to come in through the mail service, allowing for the slowness of the mail service to get there. And then even, Matt, 2 days, right, without it being postmarked,
Correct.
2 days after election day.
Yep. So up until Thursday, the 4th at 8 p.m., the ballot can come in even without a postmark. That being said, to the extent that you can make yourself a part of the mailing process, if that's what you have to do, whether it be going to the post office and getting it postmarked, those are all positive steps you can take to make sure that everything goes smoothly. Because unfortunately, there are envelopes that proceed through the post office that for whatever reason just do not receive a postmark. And if you see it happen, then you know that your ballot was postmarked properly.
And if you're running past a public mailbox at 7:59 on election day and you toss it in the mailbox somewhere in the wilds of Indiana, it's not going to be postmarked that day. So,
Correct. Correct.
You'll be out of luck even though you tossed it in the mailbox on election day.
Yep. And at that point, very unlikely we would get it by Thursday, unfortunately.
Yep. Okay, so fabulous to know that early voting seems like it's really orderly. It gives voters lots of options, lots of time. That's fabulous. If it comes down to November 2nd and you haven't voted by mail and you haven't voted early, you're going to be voting the way we've all voted through the ages, showing up at your polling place, in your ward, in your district. Is it going to be the normal number of polling places this year, or is it still going to be a reduced number due to COVID, or are things completely back to normal on that?
So in Morris County, we're having essentially the normal number of polling places. There have been some, as there are every year, consolidations or breaking up of voting districts within polling places. To the extent that voters have been impacted by that, they've received a letter in the mail that informs them of their new polling place. But other than those kind of routine elements, it's not going to be like last year where there's 1 or 2 polling places for an entire town.
Same in Essex. Absolutely. We have just as many polling places as we did in 2019. So that matches our, all of the polling places we have. So actually, like as Matt said, sometimes we do switch around based on, access or, whether or not, it's handicap accessible or a better location has been found, but it's the same amount of locations we're back to instead of regionalizing like we did last year.
Great. Now, are the hours same as usual? What are the hours going to be for voting on election day this year?
6 a.m. to 8 p.m., just as they normally are.
Great.
That's right.
Great. And people will get their polling place information on sample ballots. Will they get a separate mailer, or will they need to seek that information out elsewhere?
It's both. It's on the sample ballot. It's also on the Am I Registered? If you check your status, Am I Registered? It'll show you not only your polling place, but your legislative district, your congressional district, all of that information along. But it's on your sample ballot.
Terrific. Terrific. What do voters need to bring with them when they come? I know we talked about the digital poll books, and that if it's a mismatch, they can present identification. I know the issue of bringing identification to vote is a fraught topic, and we talked about what they need to do to verify their signature. What happens if someone doesn't have that kind of ID? If that's not, if they're not a driver, if they don't have that kind of state ID, is there anything they can do to work around that problem?
Well, the last resort would be to vote a provisional ballot, as you would do if you had an issue with a vote by mail or anything of that nature. There's never there could be a reason, such as a signature mismatch or whatever, that a voter could not vote on the machine, but there's no reason that they will not be able to vote provisionally. And when that provisional ballot comes back to Board of Elections and is inspected, that is, going to be accepted if the voter is in fact, properly registered.
Or if even, when the provisional ballot is received, if it seems to be a mismatch, there'll be a cure process. at that point or no?
I'd have to double check that. I believe there is, but I need to ask about that. I don't want to say yes without having verified it.
Okay, thank you.
And as Matt said, it's very important that no one gets turned away. You at least vote on a provisional ballot. I mean, you could be at, you could be at your wrong district, but in your correct polling location. And your name is not in that book, obviously, because, you're at District 7 and you really should be in District 6. But you can vote on a provisional ballot. That's easily seen that, oh, you voted in a different district, but your vote should count. So it's important that, and board workers know that, the last result is to vote provisional.
Very good.
Two other things on provisional ballots, if I could. One is that the biggest myth that we hear in sort of elections world in general about any topic is that provisional ballots are only counted if an election is close enough. That is not the case. Provisional ballots are always counted as long as they are accepted. They're the last ballots to be counted, but they still always are counted. The second item is that a provisional ballot that comes in, I apologize, I lost my train of thought, but I will bring it back if I remember.
And here's what I would also add: if you're going to vote, if you vote provisional, you can move within the county. So if you move from Maplewood to Livingston and you've now reside in Livingston but didn't update your address, your voter registration, you can vote on a provisional ballot in Livingston. It will get checked on. It will get counted, but you can't move out of county. Is that correct, Matt? My understanding is you can't go from Bergen County and vote in Essex if you're not registered in Essex.
That's correct. Absolutely.
And we had that question today from someone who moved to West Orange but missed the deadline. So if they go to vote on a provisional ballot, the provisional ballot won't count if they didn't update their registration, if that makes sense.
Can I ask a question about that? Which I wasn't sure if this was true when you were saying, can people still update their registration online if they've moved? Will it work? Or is it too late? So like in this example, if somebody moved to a different county, can they update their registration still online?
I don't think they can update it from another county.
Correct. They would not be able to do that for this election.
Okay.
It would take effect for the June primary next year, but not for this election, unfortunately.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. I was a little unclear when we were talking about that before.
And then the last thing to know about provisional ballots is that the vast majority of them are in fact accepted and counted. I think in Morris County over the last couple of years, we've averaged about 85-ish% of them have been ultimately accepted and counted, maybe 10 to 15% rejected. So for the most part, voters who are voting provisionally are in fact entitled to vote and their votes are counted.
The ones that are rejected, what's the main reason that they're rejected?
It can be that they are not a registered voter. That's a very common one. They just never bother to register and show up to vote. The moving between county issue comes up a lot because they voted a ballot that they are not eligible to vote on, right? If a voter lives in, let's say, Roxbury and votes in Morristown, they've then voted in races that they are not eligible to vote for. So that could be a reason for rejection. Those are two pretty common examples.
And also, Mara, if I could clarify, you can update your voter registration within county right now, just not from county to county. That's the clarification.
Gotcha. No, that actually was, I was talking to a voter over the weekend who asked me that exact question because they'd moved within Essex County, but didn't, and weren't sure what they could do. So this is very helpful. Thank you.
So when we were talking about early voting, we talked some about the voting machines. Is there anything that we didn't cover with that you guys want to talk about the machines in your counties for election day? So you feel as if we covered everything that people will need to know for the second?
As far as Morris County goes, the election day voting machines are going to be the same Sequoia machines that everyone is used to voting on. So that'll be the exact same procedure and function that everyone's used to.
And in
Great.
Essex County, we wanted to be uniform. We wanted to make sure that the same machines at early voting were on election day. We didn't want, I know Morris had the Sequoia machines already on hand. We changed from Sequoia to the Dominion optical scan with human marked paper ballots. Once we did that, we wanted to be uniform with early voting.
And it's great that Essex is addressing the confusion about the privacy sleeve, because I know there was a steep learning curve both for poll workers and for voters on that. Were there any other issues with using that as a new machine last time that that has had to be addressed that that voters should be aware of?
No, pretty simple. The biggest issue we had was just what you brought up, the privacy issue, making sure, and with the mandatory poll worker training that added $30 benefit, we think will help to alleviate that.
Great. Great. And just so you know, I put in the chat information for Sussex County, including a one-sheet explanation of what Sussex's voting machines are going to be. It shows what they look like, and there's a lot of interesting information. So if we have Sussex voters here, you can take a look and get a little preview of how your machines will look, as well as how your digital poll books will look, which is a little different than what we've seen for the other counties. I know we talked earlier on, but I want to re-emphasize here that if you are a vote by mail voter and you have your filled out ballot, you cannot show up at your polling location on the 2nd to hand it in. The poll workers cannot accept it. So if someone tries to do that and the poll workers say, no, take it away, what should you do?
So the voter at that point should bring their vote by mail ballot to a secure drop box. That would be the easiest way to address it. And now that we have about 30 in Morris County, I think, Chris, you said you also have about 30 in Essex County. That's going to be a lot easier than it would have been last year when there was much fewer.
And another point of how important the mandatory poll worker training is, because that happened in the primary, and it just, those votes were discounted based on the chain of custody because the poll workers were not, did not sign as the bearer taking that ballot, and the information did not get to the poll workers or to the voters. So this should be a lot smoother in this general.
Got it. So don't take your vote by mail ballot to your polling place, take it to a drop box, or if you're looking for fun, you go to the Board of Elections office and you drop it off if you can get there under the wire by 8 o'clock.
Exactly.
Great.
Just a quick question, because we were on the poll workers. Does the training have to be in person, or is there an online version of it, or how's that working?
So Morris County, we're offering in-person trainings. I had the schedule in front of me. Let me bring it up. Yeah, so those trainings are being conducted in person. A major reason for that is really that we have these new machines that the poll workers have never interfaced with before, particularly for early voting. So we want to make sure that everyone gets experience with that.
Same with Essex.
Very good. Very good. Is there anything else that voters with disabilities need to know about voting on election day, or is it the same process as early voting?
So in Morris, again, we're using the Sequoia machines, so it'll be the same process that voters with a disability have become accustomed to over the last several decades.
In Essex, it's the same for early voting and election day voting. It's an audio reading of the ballot.
Great. So Mara, Stacy, have you seen any questions come through in the chat that we haven't already been able to feed through? I think we've been getting to them all. Anyone who's listening, if you have additional questions, now is the time.
Okay. Drop it into the chat, and then we will unmute you, or you can ask it in the chat, and then we will let you know. but I have to say this has been pretty comprehensive. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for this.
And Jack Gavin just posted in the chat a link to the instructional video for how to use Essex County new voting machines. So if you want a fabulous demo that lays it all out, the link is right there for everyone.
And I would also note that the link that John had put in the chat previously to the YouTube video, we in Morris are using the same machines as Passaic for early voting. So that'll apply for Morris as well.
Terrific. Yeah, there's so much information in this chat that I'll be copying this out and including that so we can share it. And when we put this up on YouTube and when we share it in other forums, because this is really a lot of fantastic information. So Chris, Matt, is there anything that we've forgotten to run through before we move on?
I think that just about covers it.
Great. Anything you guys want to say to voters about this election cycle and the importance of getting out there this year?
Sure, I'll start. Oh, sorry,
Go ahead, please, Matt, go ahead.
This election cycle is as important as the 2020 election cycle was. And I think that often gets lost on folks when you do not have the president of the United States on the ballot. So it is extremely important that not only everyone get out to vote, but that folks like us who are on this Zoom meeting emphasize to voters how important it is to exercise their right to vote. We talked about use it or lose it in a different context earlier in this discussion. It's the same thing with your vote, quite frankly. You know, if we are not conscious in using our vote as much as possible, especially with what we've seen happen in this country under the 4 years of the Trump administration, we could find ourselves losing it.
Thanks, Matt.
Yes, Matt, that was great. And I'm in agreement. You know, this election from governor to the full legislature, to county offices and municipal offices and school board to ballot questions. And being that New Jersey has the most powerful governorship in the country, which makes it even more important to vote. And the best way to defend democracy is to vote. The governor and the legislature over the last 3.5 years has expanded access and opportunity to vote, from online voter registration to an expansion of vote by mail, to secure ballot drop boxes, to allowing for citizens on parole and probation to register to vote, to early voting now. You know, I just want to thank each of you for being ambassadors of democracy. And I don't think there's any better title or mission than being an ambassador to democracy. And I just want to thank you for this invitation. And I appreciate all you do.
Well, it's a pleasure to have had you both here, and really, really appreciate your taking time. I know this is your busy season, so we know your time is really valuable, and your expertise is super valuable. So thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you to everyone in our audience tonight. And I have to make a plug. Stacy is sharing in the chat. If anybody wants to join us writing postcards about early voting and making a voting plan, please reach out to her. She's got fabulous cards and messages to send out. Her email address is right there. But thank you especially everybody to John Bartlett for being here while he could, to Matt Clarkin, to Chris Durkin, in absentia, the wonderful Carolyn McGee from Sussex County. We're so grateful that you guys took the time to speak with our voters, and thanks also to Stacy and Tamara for making this go off without a hitch. We hope everyone enjoyed this discussion and learned as much as we did. For more information and useful links, you can visit our voter information page, which I've put in the link or in the chat. We'll be putting a recording of this panel up on the NJ11th for Change website shortly. And we encourage everybody to share it with your friends, share it with your neighbors, share it with your community groups, because you know, people who aren't paying as close attention as all of us are, they need this information to get them where they need to be to cast their votes. But thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Good night. And Chris, Matt, always great to spend time with you guys.
Same here.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you listening.
A pleasure. Good night, everybody.